Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Audio versions of the show are available on Anchor. And if you'd like to contact the show, you'll find us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Joining me tonight, our European correspondent, but for a very different show tonight. We're going to take a look at Gareth Southgate's provisional England squad that was released today. Craig, how you doing, my man?
Oh, good, no, thanks. How are you?
Good, yeah, not a bother at all. Some interesting names on this, and obviously some interesting names missing.
Yeah,
What was your overall? What was your kind of first reaction when you kind of seen it?
yeah. I thought it was a bit strange going provisional. First of all, usually people announce their squads and they have their 26 and their mind is made up. Now, I know probably with England it's a bit different. Two more finals to play with English competition, and also the injuries. Maybe it's giving people as much time as they can get to kind of see where they're at. But outside of that, I think the selections, from my point, only in my opinion, have been very strange. I don't know how you feel yourself looking at it, but
Y-
some of them stand out to me like a sore thumb. Like,
Yeah, I think it's a kind of a weird one. I was listening to some YouTubers today and some football reactions today, and people were saying, "Oh, it's a kind of a sellout by Southgate, and it's this, that, and the other." I kind of think it's kind of a shrewd move by Southgate because if you look down through the list of players he has there, I mean, it stands out that some players definitely won't make it.
yeah,
And obviously we'll talk about some players that we feel should be on there that aren't on there. But I was looking at it and I was thinking it's definitely a shrewd move because there's 13 players on that squad involved in the Europa League final and the Champions League final coming up this week. And God forbid if any of those boys get injured, he'd be in a real dilemma if he's named the squad. So I thought it was kind of shrewd by him, but I don't think when people were reacting first, they were thinking about the fact that we do have a Europa League final and a Champions League final to come, and a lot of English players involved
a
in
lot.
that
Yeah.
potentially. Um, Start with the goalkeeping. Let's go
Uh,
down space by
I,
space.
I think Ramsdale won't make the cut. First
Yeah,
and foremost, I would have had Nick Pope in myself. I don't think Jordan Pickford has been as reliable as he's made out to be. And I think the English feel that themselves. I think Nick Pope was definitely one that was on people's mind. Definitely on mine, at least in the selection. Henderson, I think, he's been trusted with a few games lately with United as well, which obviously can't do you any harm. So definitely can see the reason him being called in. Ramsdale, I don't think makes any sense. You relegate with Sheffield United, you know.
yeah,
Nick
yeah.
Pope, I think, is a surprise. What about you? For me, anyway, Nick Pope is a surprise.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think information was coming through today that Pope might be carrying an injury, so he might not be
But the West
available.
Brom keeper, actually, the West Brom keeper, even though they got relegated, he's actually done okay. I think he's had a good season, which is a strange thing to say, but I don't think he's done anything wrong himself. Hadn't got a great, back line in front of him. That.
Yeah, it's a strange pick, the goalkeepers, isn't it? When you think about it, I mean, obviously Pickford has 30 caps, and Dean Henderson only has one. But I mean, Henderson is bang out of form at the moment. I mean, he hasn't been great for United in let's say, the last run in 4 or 5 weeks.
Repelling a lot of balls out, like rebounding balls out, and a bit shaky. And I think the goalkeeping situation, especially going into a major tournament, you have to have that solidified first and foremost.
Yeah. But yeah, that situation is kind of weird. I mean, some people were saying today, why didn't he just pick the three goalkeepers that he knows he's going to go with? Because out of the four, it's only Dean Henderson that could potentially be involved. And to be honest with you, I think he's going to pick David De Gea anyway for the Europa League. Anyway, I don't think he's going to pick Dean Henderson based on form at the moment.
Yeah,
Um,
and Ramsdale, I can't see him staying in the team anyway.
yeah,
I
and
can't
like
see him making.
yeah, but I mean, there was probably a case there for, just picking the three goalkeepers and maybe putting in an extra midfielder or something like that. You know what I mean? Because obviously Aaron Ramsdale,
Yeah,
okay, it's nice to be picked in a provisional England squad and stuff like that. But the reality is, he's not getting a sniff of those Euros. Let's be
no.
honest. And it's just,
Not
it's
getting a
kind.
sniff on the bench.
Yeah, it was like he kind of named him in case Henderson did play in the Europa League and happened to get injured. And I mean, how often does a goalkeeper get injured? You know what I mean? It's not very often.
The chances of that,
Yeah. Hopefully, we're not putting the mockers on them now, but the chances of it are slim to none. Um, let's get into the defenders. This is a very interesting situation.
Very strange one. Four right backs, I think I counted. It could be, but it looks like 4 right backs are in the 33. Trent, James. Who else have we got in there? 33. Walker, Trippier.
Yeah.
That's 4 in that wing back position or right back position, whatever way they play. For me, I don't think Trent deserves his place over the season's course for me. And I don't want him to go. Look, I don't care. I'm a Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
I'd rather him not go to be
kind of a selfish sort of attitude, yeah.
I think completely deserves his place after winning the league with Atletico. You know, he's been Mr. Reliable at that right back position. And for an English player to do that under Simeone's regime, you know, it's credit to himself. I thought Reece James has improved a lot, and I think he's been pushed even nearly to midfield sometimes by Tuchel to kind of see what he can get out of him. And
yeah, the only thing I'd say about Reece James is, I mean, he's been playing him more in a central defence of a 3 with Aspilicueta on the outside of him.
The right side of the 3. Yeah. Wan-Bissaka, is he declared for Congo?
I don't know whether he has or not. No news.
Like that. Is that why he wasn't mentioned?
No news has come out yet about him. So I don't know. It looks like he's just being left out. Yeah.
That was a surprise to me, to be honest. In a defensive point.
Yeah. I mean, who do you see? I mean, obviously, there's 33 in this squad, and they have to get it down to who?
Godfrey as well is in there, isn't he?
Godfrey's in there, yeah. You have Trent, Ben Chilwell, Connor Cody, Ben Godfrey, Reece James, Harry Maguire, Tyrone Mings, Luke Shaw, John Stones, Kieran Trippier, Kyle Walker, and Ben White. So, I mean,
Cody, what the hell?
I suppose if you look at Connor Cody, I mean, Wolves did have a real good season up till the point where they lost Jimenez. And he was playing really, really well up till that point. Now, I know that doesn't justify it.
I don't know if it's going to be anyone else than Maguire and Stones, though, with England, really.
No, well, you would assume that they would be the ones who'd start. But would you fancy Cody as a replacement on the bench, potentially? One. Yeah, just before I lost you there, Craig, I was saying to you, is it Connor Cody you would fancy on the bench there for England, obviously with Stones and Harry Maguire starting?
With the selection that's been made available, you would probably say so, that he would come in and do a job. Obviously, being captain of Wolves, he would have a bit of experience and a bit of, understanding, obviously. But there's people who I would have had in the team who aren't even selected, and I would have had them even over Tyrone Mings as well, to be honest, who was actually being selected. Will I tell you now, or will we go after?
No. Give us it, because we're going down through the mid defenders.
Partner Jeremy Konsa has been absolutely outstanding for Aston Villa, and I'm completely shocked that he hasn't been brought in. Florian Tomori, AC Milan are finally back in the Champions League. He's made his Serie A debut over there. He started for AC Milan. He's only 23, and he's had an unbelievable season. Yeah. Again, why not bring these lads in if they're doing so well? Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like,
yeah, well, I mean, I suppose when you talk about Konsa, you would say he's probably nearly had a better season than Tyrone Mings.
Mings is more liable to a mistake, I would even say, as well.
With Tomori, I mean, Tomori's been outstanding. I mean, if you compare, say, the season that Tomori has had at AC Milan compared to the season that Tyrone Mings has had at Aston Villa, I mean, it's a no-brainer, really, isn't it?
He's not looking beyond England, sadly, is it? Well, bar Trippier maybe in Spain. Another I mentioned, again, it's just my own opinion. I think Luke Ayland's been absolutely outstanding this season as well. His work rate is never die attitude as well. You know what I mean? You want to be bringing them lads with you now that you can rely on them. He's doing absolutely nothing wrong as well. Lewis Dunk, I thought, was possibly a good shout as well.
Yeah.
Leader material, good season with Brighton. Obviously, I said to you earlier that I could see Ben White maybe nicking into the team. It's still provisional, but we don't know yet. But Lewis Dunk, I thought, was another name. Him, Tomori, and Konsa, definitely I thought one of them three, would have been mentioned or thereabout. But
yeah, I suppose he's favouring Tyrone Mings because he has 8 caps already. So he
already has under the belt.
He's trying to go with a bit of experience there. But I tell you, if I'd Harry Maguire and Tyrone Mings in there, I'd be a little bit concerned.
They're gonna have to outscore a lot of big hitters, but they're also, which they can do, but I can see them conceding 2 or 3 at the same time. But it looks a bit like,
Yeah, you mentioned Trent there, obviously, and from a selfish point of view, as Liverpool fans, we love him to stay at home and have a real good pre-season and stuff like that. But I mean, when you think of Trent, I mean, he gives you so much more than that right back position. He's so versatile in terms of, I mean, if your back was to the wall, you could put him in midfield. His ball into the box is outstanding. He might be a little bit suspect at times in his tracking back and his defending, but in terms of his forward play,
yeah.
he's
Reason,
he's the best of that list there, isn't he?
The only reason that I have kind of gone against him, nothing to do with him as a player, but if England set up defensively, he's going to be not really that much help. I think they have so much attack anyway to use and variety that they mightn't really need his crossing as much anyway, with the midfield selection dilemma that they have and the attacking options that they have as well. I don't know, in a major tournament, if he's bombing forward and gets caught, they're going to be punished on that stage, I think.
Yeah, it's what I'm thinking is it's not necessarily bring him to necessarily put him in there straight away and play him. I think to have a versatile player like that, if you want to change up a formation or you're chasing a game and you want to do something different, it's nice to have that option there. And I don't think his counterparts on the list bring the same options that he does.
Do you worry for Trent as in one of the people to lose his spot in the cup?
Well, considering what's being said in the last 6 to 8 weeks, but I mean, if you look at the list that's there, if you look at Liverpool's end to the season with 8 wins and 2 draws, is he not the informed player?
Yeah, going based on form, like, and his deliveries, his play, his drive.
Yeah. And I mean, Southgate did say that he bases it on experience and he bases it on form. So if he bases it on experience and on form, yeah. So I mean, it's. I wouldn't be too upset if he went because I think it would be good for him because I'd rather see him playing matches. Than to go stale maybe for a month and then come into pre-season because I think he's one of those lads, like he's a confidence player.
Yeah,
and I think if he did get a chance in the team over there in some capacity and he grew that confidence, I think it would benefit Liverpool in the new season when he comes back full of that international confidence.
And he's no shy to the big stages like European finals, Premier League winner. You know, you have that under your belt as well. Like you have a lot of maturity through that and going through them stages as well.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any question about Ben Chilwell.
No, I think he's been a very reliable player. Even at Leicester, I thought he was a good player. You know, he's definitely like a consistent performer. You know what you're going to get. But I think Shaw's been my left back of the season.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of people's left back of the season, and rightly so.
Yeah. Well, Shaw's another one this season who's been spending a lot more time bombing forward and providing and stuff like that as well. Very, very similar to Trent, except I would argue that Shaw's defending is slightly better than Trent's. So, I mean, who falls out of here? I mean, to me, Godfrey falls out.
Godfrey falls out.
Does Walker fall out?
It's a pretty tough one with Walker, isn't it? Because, again, you touch on that what you said, Noel, about experience. You know.
Well, he has to find 6 to come out because we'll assume Aaron Ramsdale comes out, so that's 1.
Godfrey be 2.
So Godfrey would be 2.
I have a midfielder who I think is coming out as well.
Yeah. Ben White. Does Ben White come out?
I said, remember earlier on about his surprise inclusion. But you know what? Sadly, I think he comes out because of Chilwell and Shaw, which is no disrespect to Ben White. It's just these 2 lads have been doing it at a high level. No disrespect to Brighton or him, like, you know.
If you're third behind those 2, you're doing all right.
Yeah.
In fairness. Let's push on into the midfielders then. Jude Bellingham, Jordan Henderson.
Oh, chance.
Jesse Lingard, Mason Mount, Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice, and James Ward-Prowse.
I would not be taking Henderson for multiple reasons. Been out injured nearly most of the latter part of the season, and you don't just bring him because, he might be fit for the tournament. He's no real, legs or anything going into that. He has no match sharpness going into a major tournament. And what will be desired of him as well, I think in them games, it might be a bit too much. Again, for a selfish reason, I don't want them to go either. I'd rather them get better and get fit and get back to us,
I I think he goes. And the reason I think he goes is if you look at that midfield, there is
Yeah,
literally very little experience in there with
I
the
think he
exception of
needs.
Jordan Henderson.
I think he needs him with Royce, as in the counterpart Royce, to look after him and maybe talk to him, and
Yeah.
maybe sit in beside him like what he does with nearly Fabinho.
So if we need to take, I suppose we'd
Ah,
need to take two out of here, would we? And
Ward
depends.
Prowse. I'm taking Ward Prowse out. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a good footballer, but he's very set piece heavy. I don't really know what else he can really bring with the other midfield that they have there.
Is that a bad thing in a Euro, so to be very set
It can be
piece
the
heavy?
difference. It can be the difference. You know
Could
what I
be
mean?
used
But
to
if they
see
have,
again for me, it's the versatility of having someone like him on your bench if you're chasing the game to bring him on.
who else is in the midfield there?
You've Jude Bellingham.
Yeah,
Does
I think it'd
Jude
be
go?
good for him to go. I think it'd be good for him to go. I think it'd be good for Bellingham.
I don't think he goes.
No,
No, I think he's had an outstanding. I think he's had a real good season. But
yeah,
again, I think you have. I think you're going to have to sacrifice him for experience somewhat,
I
and I
think
think it's just too early for him. I think.
I've seen some people complaining about James Maddison not going, but I don't think James Maddison has been the James Maddison that we know. Had a
No.
couple of injuries and in and out, but his form hasn't just been what it should be and what it could be. So I think there's no question about him being left out. With Phil Foden's being arguably one of the best players in the league,
Yeah, I think with Madison though, I mean, the only thing I'd preface that with, I mean, he is an FA Cup winner this year. Now I know they dropped out of the top four, but I mean, Leicester still had a good season. I know he'd been in and out of the team and stuff like that, but yeah, I suppose, yeah, you'd struggle maybe to put him in, wouldn't you? But he'd definitely be in the conversation. So
Yeah.
who are you taking out? You have to take two out of the midfield potentially. So who's the two that comes out for you?
Well, I can't. Funny enough, I'm actually going to say Ward Prowse, and I don't think Henderson should have went or if he goes, I don't think he should in the first place. So the two of them, selfishly as well.
You're going with Ward Prowse and Henderson.
Yeah, I think Jude would gain a lot of experience and a lot of maybe maturity from going to a major tournament. I think he's capable of playing in a major tournament at that age as well. He's doing it week in, week out for Dortmund. He seems like another kind of, his confidence kind of player.
Dortmund, though, is a very different dynamic, isn't it? With Royce there and Jadon Sancho and stuff like that and all. You know what I mean?
I think he'd settle in. I think he'd settle, like, he'd just go about his business. I think the age doesn't really matter. I think if you're good enough to go, you should go.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd still want that sprinkling of experience there. If I'm taking two out there, I'm taking Jude out, and it's no disrespect to him because he is a very good footballer. But I think it's still too early for him, and I'd like to blood him a bit further, not in a finals, if you like. So I'm taking him out, and I think Calvin Phillips comes out.
Really?
Yeah, and that's again no disrespect to Calvin Phillips. He's had a decent season with Leeds. But I mean, he's only back off injury, is he? Or is he? He's only back from injury, isn't he?
I think he's touch and go. To be honest,
he's only back off
I'd
injury.
even have him. I'd go as far as having him on a fit day. I'd have him over Declan Rice.
Really?
If both of them are fully fit.
Jeez, that's a big shout, isn't it?
I don't think his work gets recognised because it's not like integral to the attacking side of Leeds. I think he cleans up so well. He screens very well. He can play a pass. I think he has a bit of everything about him. I think he's a really good player. But again, what are you getting? 100% Calvin Phillips? Or are you getting 75% Calvin Phillips? These are major decisions. Major.
Yeah, I think for Calvin Phillips to make it, you need 100% Calvin Phillips.
Yeah.
For at least 3 to 4 months in the build up to this squad being named.
Because in that job, you have to cover so much ground, and it's like a donkey horse sort of kind of job,
Yeah, I do like the look though of what I've taken out. I would like to look at Jordan Henderson, Jesse Lingard, Mount, Rice, and Ward Prowse. Gives you a lot of options.
Do you think Ward Prowse gets a game with all that?
I think if England are 1-0 down, or I think if they're 2-1 down in a real tight game where they need a draw to progress or to get a point over the thing, I think he's the man you throw on for the last 20 minutes and you try and pick up a few free kicks. He's absolutely a baller from a dead ball free kick from about 20 yards out. And I think his free kicks when he's on form are nearly the equivalent of a penalty.
Yeah, deadly.
You know what I mean? And that's why I would have him there as an option on the bench, because things will, as they progress through this finals, things will get tight. They will come up against kind of stauncher type of teams. And I think to have him on the bench with that kind of threat,
Yeah,
and you know what I mean, he's had 6 caps and he scored a goal. He has a goal in his locker already for England, so it's not like he doesn't know what to do, you know.
yeah,
Um, but I think in the midfield, I don't think you can go too wrong with experience, because if you think about the way the forward line is shaping up, and we're going to have a look at it now in a minute,
Jesus.
it's very young, very young.
Yeah, bar Harry Kane, like,
But you know what I mean? I mean, Harry Kane obviously picks himself, but outside of Harry Kane, if you look at all the other players that are in there, most of them are really young. And I think if you go with a real young midfield and a
yeah,
potentially real young front line, because remember, Harry Kane most of the season has been dropping deep and playing that sort of
yeah,
false sort of, you
false
know,
nine kind of,
yeah,
yeah,
he's been playing that kind of position. So he's not necessarily the guy that tends to be the front man. He tends to be the guy running from deep who gets in there, maybe from a ball from Trent or something like that. So I think if you have that much youth in there, I think that's why Henderson is a shoe, and I think Henderson goes without a shadow of a doubt in terms of experience.
like they
You
look
know?
after them. Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, even in terms of training camps and maturity and all that kind of stuff, you know. So that's what I'm going with. I reckon Jude comes out, and I reckon Calvin comes out, and you're going for Jordan, and you're going for James Ward-Prowse, is it?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's not too bad. It'll be interesting to see them when we go back and look at it again, how we
I'll
did,
be
you know.
completely fucking
Yeah,
on
yeah,
somebody else.
yeah. Let's look at the forward line. I mean,
This has bugged me, as you know, from the podcast, and I'll defend this man till the day I die. I don't give a rat's.
yeah,
Patrick Bamford should be in that team. I'm Irish. It shouldn't bother me, but it does.
without a shadow of a doubt, he should be
17
in there.
goals, 7 assists, more goals and assists than Ollie Watkins, Marcus Rashford, and Mason Greenwood. Just to
Yeah,
point that out.
yeah.
Joe.
There seems to be it's a kind of a Leeds thing, isn't it? Like it's whatever it is. They're back in the division. They had a decent season. They had some great matches. Took some good scalps this year as well.
Yeah, they were up
And
against the big lads, not a bother.
Bamford's an absolute goal machine. And
And his work rate, like, imagine that in a tournament, is absolutely vital. He's gonna run down lads. He's gonna, chase lost causes
yeah,
without being told. You know what I mean?
and I would have thought he would have brought a bit of not necessarily experience in terms of the England
Yeah,
setup, but
another threat
experience in
though.
terms of his
I don't
makeup.
know how. For me, I don't know how Raheem Sterling is going. My opinion, I think he's had a horrible season. And
That
Pep, when you're out of Pep's, when you're not in Pep's thoughts and you're not playing well, Pep bleeding closes the door until you are playing well. Like,
I
until
suppose
someone drops their phone.
I suppose that's what Southgate's looking at: 61 caps, 14 goals. So
Yeah.
that's where you're getting that little sprinkling of experience in
How do
there.
you
Even
feel about the Ollie Watkins thing and the Bamford? Like, your opinion, like, do you think it's justified, as in Watkins in there and Calvert-Lewin actually in there? I don't know about that either.
well, Calvert-Lewin shouldn't be in there at all. I'd have
No,
Patrick Bamford in there before Calvert-Lewin, and not
that's a
because of
joke.
any Everton connection or anything like that. But
It's
Calvert-Lewin has
crazy.
been so out of form this season. I mean,
Just first half,
he started off, I think, the first 10 to 12 games or something like that. He was setting the place alight, and then he just drifted out of the season and
the
just,
first few games he had a consistent bit, but that was it. That was the
yeah,
first half of the season. It's crazy, I think. Honest to
yeah.
God. Jadon Sancho, how do you feel?
Yeah, I think Jaden has to win, because I think Jaden has had a good season, and I know you might say, well, then does that justify Jude being in as well? But I think there's a very different dynamic there. I mean, Jaden Sancho is one of those. I suppose you have to look at it as well. These players, they have to bring certain stars in terms of sponsors and stuff like that and all. You know what I mean? And that's where you get those decisions made. I think Saka had a real good season for Arsenal, but he had a lot of pressure on him. A lot of
Yeah,
pressure was dumped on him to carry that Arsenal team at times.
him and Smith Rowe, like, the two of them basically carried Arsenal to, even though it wasn't a good season, it could have been a lot worse without the two young fellas. Like,
Yeah, I suppose if we go down through it, Phil Foden is a dead cert. Okay,
yeah,
um,
that's 100.
Kane is a dead cert. Rashford is a dead cert. Sterling is a dead cert. So the question is,
Has to come out.
Calvert Lewin, I would say, definitely comes out. I have a funny feeling Saka's going to come out.
I think he'll take Saka out.
You think so as well?
I do,
I
just
think
because
so.
of his age, and he's had a lot to deal with this season on
Yeah.
his back. And I
Yeah.
don't think Gareth Southgate might be looking about managing him as a young fella as well, not
Yeah.
wanting to heap more pressure on him.
To be honest with you, if I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm happy with that decision. I'd rather Saka had a rest and had a decent pre-season than to
especially
go
for
there.
his mentality as well, Imagine he's gone to a big tournament, he probably the England shirt on as well, and at that age, if you're getting thrown on, you feel like you have to do something on top of that season you've just had. It might be good for him to wind down, and I've no doubt about in the future he'd be definitely at England tournaments and camps, but it'd be nice for him to kind of go in maybe a bit fresher and a bit more light-headed, clear-headed,
Yeah.
Arsenal were overly reliant on him and Smith Rowe,
Yeah, and he is, and he's only a kid. He's only a kid. You know what I mean? So if we take Calvert-Lewin out and we take Saka out, then we have to take one more. One more has to come out then, and that's either Grealish. I mean, I presume Sancho's going to go, so one more has to come out between Grealish and Ollie Watkins.
Fucking hell.
Teammates as well, which makes it harder,
Do you know what? And I really do like Grealish, but I think they can afford Grealish to go more because they have Foden, Mount. They have more of that kind of midfield options. Where you take Watkins out, what else have you really got as a plan B? If you're starting Sancho and Rashford, and I have Greenwood actually, don't they as well?
Yeah, you would assume. Would you assume Greenwood? Yeah, Greenwood's going, isn't he?
Greenwood, I think, is one of the, for his age, I think he's one of the best finishers in the league. I wouldn't take him out. I think he deserves his place.
No, he's another one similar to James Ward-Prowse that if you need a goal in the last 20 minutes of a game, you put him on because he might only need one chance and he'll put it away. Whereas if you look at Ollie Watkins, the likes of Ollie Watkins might need a number of chances before he put one away, and you don't get that many chances at international level.
I still think Bamford should be in over Watkins. That's just my opinion. I think it's shocking. But look, it is what it is. Who do you take out? I take Calvert-Lewin anyway, definitely gone. Saka sadly as well. No bad form on him, but the other one, does Watkins drop out?
I think Watkins stays in, and I think Grealish comes out.
Because they can afford to lose him with the other midfield options that they have. The dilemma.
It's not even they can afford to lose him. I think he's been out injured, hasn't he?
That's another thing.
And he's basically only back. And I think
he only came back the second last week for a few minutes, and then he played the following. That's all it is.
Yeah, then he played the game against them. Now, having said that, the game against Chelsea, he was outstanding the last day of the season. But as you said, I think with Ollie Watkins, I think he's put in enough of a shift this year, hasn't he, for Aston Villa to probably seal a place.
I understand, but I'm just he's had a good season, especially coming from the Championship, with just so much pressure. You have to live up to a Premier League team signing you. I'm not saying he's had a bad season or whatever, but for me, I'm so defensive of Patrick Bamford. Because from the start of the season all the way through, the lone striker, again, similar to Watkins coming up with a Championship team. I'm sure a lot of people, bar Leeds fans, were saying they're going to need a striker. He's not going to be able for that in the Premier League.
Yeah, well, I'd have Bamford in before those two, but I'm just thinking with Bamford.
Yeah.
I suppose with Bamford, he's an agile kind of player in terms of bringing him because he scores a lot of different goals.
I think him and Kane are very similar, as in Bamford drops as well.
Yeah.
Put the shift in, and if they could kind of do what Kane and Son does, where they rotate between each other, one goes up, one goes back. Will Watkins do that with Kane if they're both on? I don't think so. Maybe Watkins will stay up and be a more direct approach. It'd be interesting to see if he does get minutes.
Yeah, well, I suppose when you're looking at it, I mean, Watkins kind of operates kind of off the left, doesn't he? And Kane is more up the middle.
Up the middle.
Yeah, so it's.
But Rashford will probably play, will he, on the left, or Sterling, and then Sancho on the right.
Well, you would think it would be Rashford on the left would be the first choice. Oh no, maybe Phil Foden, no?
Will he not play in the 10?
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, yeah. So you're looking at Rashford then on the left.
Sancho, Kane, maybe.
Kane,
Sancho, I don't know. Greenwood on the bench.
Yeah, Greenwood will come from the bench.
Sterling. what if he starts Sterling? Like, you know.
It's a big call, but again, 61 caps, 14 goals. You know what I mean? There's history there. There's experience there that might be needed on the pitch. I mean, when you go down through the spine of the team, like, you know what I mean? You're looking at, Pickford and goals brings you the experience, but again, has been very ropey. Although he has settled for Everton in the last few months and hasn't made as many errors as normal.
Yeah.
But then you go into the defence. You're relying on Harry Maguire and Tyrone Mings and John Stones, I suppose, in terms of experience. Then you go into the midfield. It's literally down to Henderson and Lingard. You know what I mean, in terms of experience.
Lingard's been out of camp for a long time as well, like, you know.
Yeah, but having said that, came back. He went to West Ham and has had an outstanding 6 months.
Yeah,
I mean, he's arguably the reason why West Ham are in a European spot.
He deserves to be in.
And then again up front, your experience there is really Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, and Raheem Sterling. So I mean, I suppose it depends. It depends how safe Southgate wants to go. We know he's kind of a fairly safe manager. You know what I mean? He's not one that's gonna like.
He's not gonna go out and put all guns blazing. He doesn't play like that. He's very conservative, like, as an approach. Like.
Yeah, very conservative, methodical, safe. But I mean, in these tournaments, sometimes you have to create a star out of some youth there that has to break through and happen that lights up a tournament. The guess on this one, it will be Jadon Sancho. Bamford is the only one, was he? Bamford's the one that should have been in there. You think definitely?
Bamford 100%. Having a look, who else? No, it's just more so.
Danny Ings.
Danny Ings actually deserves a shout.
Danny Ings,
that's a fair shout as well. Like, when he's fit, he's on fire. Like, there's no stopping him. He's so good when he's fit. Like,
yeah, I probably would have had Danny Ings in there for Calvert-Lewin.
I'd agree with that.
And you would have brought Bamford in for Watkins, would you?
I would. My opinion.
Or Grealish.
I would have brought Bamford in.
But you're thinking, would you be bringing Bamford to the finals, wouldn't you? Not just in the provisional squad.
No, bringing him all the way.
You're bringing Bamford all the way, yeah. I was thinking that, yeah. I'd be of the same opinion about Danny Ings. I think Danny Ings has had an amazing season down there.
When he's fit, so, like, that's the only problem at Liverpool. It was not his fault, It didn't work out. He was injured, like,
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's an interesting one where he's done a provisional squad, so it'll be interesting to see. I think they've got
let's see how many we get right or wrong.
It'll be interesting because I think it's the first week in June, isn't it? He has to name the squad the 26th.
Final 26, yeah.
Yeah, but there's some interest in them. He has some headaches ahead of himself there now because he has left out what we would regard as some key players that might have even made it to the final squad. And he's put in some players there that are kind of out of left field.
I can't wait. We'll see who gets cut, and we can kind of digest why and how it evolves and how it affects the rest of the team.
Yeah, well, I think we'll definitely revisit it when the 26th comes out. Because it'd be good for us to chat about what our thinking was, and was our thinking anywhere in line with his thinking,
Yeah. It's very hard to read what he's going to do, to be honest. He's very close to his chest. He's very, as I said, conservative approach, and you don't. It's very hard to. Maybe he's going to see how players perform in the both finals as well. How did he come out of it as well?
I think he leans. I think in this squad, I think he's going to lean heavily towards experience, in certain key areas. That's why I think Jordan goes. But we shall see. I mean, it's going to be very interesting. But as always, pleasure having you on. This has been our England provisional Euro squad match, our squad reaction with Craig. Thanks a million, Craig, for coming on. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button, Dynamo Podcast Network, Anchor for audio versions of the show, and we will chat to you again when the 26-man squad comes out. Cheers, Craig.
Cheers.